only. That's what he's gonna be training all day.
That's right.
Yeah. So he's all ready.
Not go through very quickly. Mine has already been through one and is halfway done with another. I think it just depends on the dog.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they've learned. The first ones took a long time for them to go through, but now these days they're getting through them pretty quickly. So I have to kind of put them down only for the class time so that I don't have to get an extra job just to afford the yak milk.
I was going to say, they're not cheap.
They're not cheap. They're not cheap. All right. Well, here's the thing. We're getting ready to start, so I'm going to put us all on mute. If you need to ask questions, you are more than welcome to unmute yourself, ask those questions, or let me know if you're having an issue with something going on. But if you'll come to a standing position, let's get warmed up and ready to go for the class. So as we stand, our feet about hip to shoulder distance wide, and we start that gentle swing. By the way, another piece of equipment that if you wanted, you could have wobbles under your feet, something to help challenge your balance more. So if you have those, you can go ahead and use those under your feet right now. Twisting and turning like this, it starts off very gentle, and then we begin to increase the movement simply because our body will warm up. We want those spinal joints to move because warming up the structure of our spine is great. The arms are sort of flying outward, a nice decompression action, and there's some effect happening even down into the hips and the knees and the feet. So this is really good. So it's a sort of total body action, and you're also scouting through, and if you find anything that is responding in a negative way to our movement, then you're going to adapt yourself as you work out in the class. Okay, and then just start the forward and backward swing, and it can just stay simple. If you've got a shoulder issue, you can work around it most times, but do work around it. Don't make it unpleasant. You can throw those arms down. You might have to bring the weight backward toward your heels if you throw down with enough force. So you're going to engage at a level of intensity that is just right for you. All right. Now, first balance challenge, soften those knees, stand either on the floor or on those wobbles, rock your weight back, lose your balance completely, and then rock your weight forward, try and lose your balance completely, because that's important. We've got to know where's our edge. So now I can commit to just on the edge of, losing. And if I have to step forward or back, it is not a negative at all. It just meant that I went a little further, but keep those knees in a bend as you're going down. Put one foot forward to the other, knees in a bend. Come toward the toes. There's a lot of things in life that can trip us up. Just a few days ago, the puppy sort of clotheslined me, and I went down, but I went down soft. And so that's what you need to do. You need to go down soft, and bending the knees helps you get down if you're going to go down. Put the other foot forward. So the training is happening. There's consciousness, consciously bend the knees, so that later on, unconsciously, we will have that habit, that repetitive action where we go into a crouch. Great. Now bring your feet close together, or on a single wobble if you would. Come toward the toes, and it's disturbing how much different our balance can be when we have changed so that our surface area is smaller. And that's the biggest part of this. The surface area is smaller. There's no compensation for left or right movements. If I stand on a single foot, well, it's even a smaller surface area. Even if I can maintain my balance on one foot, going toward the toes, well, then that's even a tinier surface area back on the heel. There's no toes to help me. Try it one side, try it the other side, and just, challenge yourself. Because what builds balance is challenge. Appropriate challenge, safely done. Okay, good. Now, stand here again with your feet about between hips to shoulder distance wide. And then coming on down to the floor and touching that floor. Oh, you're getting too big pieces there, girl. Back up again. So we come down, touch that floor, and come back up again. I know, I took away the toes. Now, put one foot forward. Now, when you're coming down, you can go in a squat with the knees bending, or you can tilt forward, almost like a forward bend, and just bend your knees a little bit at the end so that you're not creating stress in the hamstrings. So try that a couple of times, whichever method, but I do recommend both if your knees will allow it. Other foot in the forward position. You can touch the floor with a crouch position, or you can create the tilt action with just a little bit of save those hamstrings bend. Now, if the feet are close together, we come down. If we bend our knees, those knees have to separate out, and there's some side-to-side movement we have to coordinate with. Or we could do the tilt into a forward bend method with just a little bit of bend. But still, any left or right movement of my body is going to be magnified by the proximity of the feet. And the single leg action, probably the easiest one is to send the other leg that you're not standing on backward so that the knee is practically straight on the supportive side. You may find that that's a great workout for you. Or if you want the harder one, is to bend the knee. You'll have to do something with the other leg. All right, so just find a way, what's around me here, to come down with the single leg. Get these icky things out of my hands. Oh my gosh. And then we're going to stand with the feet once again about between shoulder and hip distance wide. And we're going to tilt and then take the leg off, and then the arms will spread. Your body will know how to keep you upright. So we're going to make a side tilt action a few times. Okay. Now, we're going to be doing push-ups today. We want to warm up our pectoral muscles, and we want to warm up our hands to it as well. So I want you to press your palms flat into each other. Bring those elbows out so that you're getting a nice little, almost 90-degree bend. Don't stress yourself, but push your hands gently but firmly into each other. And the more you press, the more you're going to feel your chest muscles engaged. Now take your arms and move them to one side and to the other side. Now if this is too much for your wrists, you can have a little bit less of a sharp angle, okay? So from one side to the other side where the chest muscles are being engaged. And then take that higher up. All right. And then take it further down. All right. Now make a big circle with it. And make that circle move away from you. And then swirl that circle back towards you. Great. Now make sort of a outward, almost like a chopping movement to one side and pull it back in. And then do that again and start to come across your body. And then reverse that. Okay. So by now, we should be feeling some things, maybe in the forearms, maybe in the chest and the shoulders, and that has warmed us up enough that we're ready to create a push-up. And I like the push-up beginning at the wall or lightly down at the floor. I'm going to show the wall method. And the reason for this is because I can control the amount of pressure on my wrists, but I can really engage my chest muscle. Now I start with my hands not at the height of the shoulder, but a little below the shoulder height. All right? And I'm trying to push my hands towards each other. So I'm just trying to make the wall as if I'm going to squeeze the wall together. Each time I do that, I feel the chest muscles engaged. See both my hands. All right, so squeezing. Now, this next time I squeeze, I'm going to move toward the wall with the shoulders and hips traveling the same. And then I'm going to squeeze and move my chest backward, trying to squeeze. Now, when I go toward the wall, you'll see my elbows flaring outward. As I come away from the wall, my elbows are moving inward. Now, the more I push, like I'm trying to push the wall over, the greater amount of action. But right now, I'm leaving myself where the arms are practically at the height of the shoulder. All right? Because higher or lower action in the chest would be different. So if I were creating an action where I step back more, well, relative to my chest, my arms are higher. Okay? And that's possible. And if I were to move my hands further down, I have to turn my wrists a little bit more toward each other, then the arm to chest ratio is lower. You'll find that you're going to be more comfortable in one position. We're after 10 repetitions. So the best thing to do is to choose the one that's the easiest for you to create activation in the chest area, squeezing those hands toward the midline so that you are telling your mind, use the pectorals over and over again, trying to get your body to use the correct muscle group. And so that wall version of things is a really nice one. It's really getting us to engage. If that was for some reason insufficient, we could use a strap behind us and create sort of a rounding of the chest like that. That might work just as well to bring engagement into the pectorals for this first round. And so you'll do about 10 of those, and then we're next going to target not an upper body, but a lower body. We're going to be targeting our hamstring. And this is a technique called a good morning. And classically, you use a pole. Often it's a weighted pole. And as I said, a pole is really nice to have. You could get this as a dowel rod, which is what this is right here, or you could use a broomstick or something like that, or nothing at all. Classically, we would put the bar in the back of the shoulder, not right up on the neck bones, but down on some of the softer padding of muscle structure there. But if you find that putting your arms in this position is troublesome, then you could always hold the pole in front of you. Or if you have no pole or anything, just cross your arms in front of you like so. Okay? So either way. Now I'm going to stand where my feet are on the outer edges of the mat. And with this right back here, I'm just going to push my hips back until the weight's on the heels, and then pushing my heels away from each other like I'm stretching apart the mat. I'm going to push my hips forward. So I'm going to start that a little bit, pushing backward and then pushing forward. Back and forth we go. Dog wrestling going on. Now this next time I start to push my hips backward, I'm going to tilt down until my hamstrings are stretching. I'm going to push my heels away as I'm stretching the mat, and then keeping the weight on the heels, I'm going to push my hips forward. So we come forward. It's like a forward bend, but we keep the knees almost locked, and then we push our heels away from each other to drive forward. This is not an action of the abdominal muscles or the back. This is supposed to be an action of the back of the leg. I'm going to get the pole out of the way so that those who don't have it can see the other action I'm talking about, where I just cross my arms in front. Hips pushing backward, feel the stretch, heels push out, and push the hips forward. So we want to feel this happening in the hamstring. We're trying to get our body to use the hamstring muscle. The weight stays on your heels. You know, you may think since the pelvis is going forward, the weight should be on your toes. That won't initiate the correct action. So it's weight on the heels all the time, and the pelvis swaying back and forth. Okay? A little difficult of a technique to master at first, but you will get it in just a little bit of time. And this is a great thing for those who have tight hamstrings, because it both lengthens and strengthens that hamstring area. They have so much energy. I just wish there was a way we could tap into it. All right. Now, when you've gotten those hamstrings active and you're ready for the next thing, we're going to be working with our bicep muscle and a part of the forearm. So we're going to use a weight. Now, we were talking earlier, you may only have a 1 pound weight, or you may have an assortment of weights. You know, 4 pounds is not that uncommon, 5 pounds is not that uncommon. And so you want to grab a single weight and come into a standing position. Let me put these little distracting animals into a different place. Hey, you know where you could be? There you go. Now they're like, what the heck, Mom? He's tricked us. Okay, we're going to stand. Now, the wonderful thing about standing up with only one weight in your hand is that already our core is engaged. All right, we're working harder. We're not sitting down. Our body's either leaning toward the weight or it's disastrously trying to lean away. And so don't do that. Just try and stand absolutely in the center and hold your weight as if it's a hammer. Bring the elbow right against the body and take about 5 seconds to bend. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Unbend. 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're spending 10 seconds on each repetition. Here it is from the side. You can see my elbow stays right there. I don't smooth my shoulder forward or backward at all. And of course, going slow is tiresome. Your body's like, let's do almost crank out a few of these. And it's like, oh no. You'll even sway your hips and everything to try and make that happen. Instead, just stand, unlock those knees a little bit, keep that chin level, take a breath in, and when you exhale, and then inhale. All right, so it is going to create a little bit of a burn here, but it might also be something we feel in our forearm. And that's the action of holding this weight as if we're holding a hammer. And so we're going to do 10 of these on one side. And then when you reach your limit on that, you do the other side. And here again, we stand, we unlock those knees a little bit, so we'll engage our core a little bit more. We won't just, lock in. We keep a nice uplifted chest, the chin is level, the elbows right there, and then we just take 5 seconds. And then down, and all the while I'm trying to say stay centered, don't put more weight on this side, don't shift the hips or anything. And so it's a total body action. And our brain doesn't like to do total body actions unless it thinks that's the only thing that can happen. So we're trying to turn this training into something that makes us work a little harder than we absolutely have to. And that's in order to engage and get more out of the exercise so that we will actually improve and enhance ourselves, because we also teach ourselves to source the whole body, not just to languish just using one area and none others. So that's just nice and slow and simple. And of course, your off arm, as it would be, your non-dominant side, is going to fatigue. Now, typically, fatigue should be happening after the halfway point. If it's happening a lot sooner, then you may actually be using weight that's more than your body needs on that one side. Maybe your arm's just tired, okay? So you could switch down a weight level. If you're getting past a halfway point and at no point in this repetition of 10 are you feeling any fatigue, then obviously you need to intensify things, and it could be that you just slow things down by about half. You may think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's actually, no, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a lot slower. And so go slower if you're not feeling intensity. And then if you're going really slow and you're still not feeling intensity, then up your weight, okay? All right, so we've done push-up, we've worked our hamstrings, we've done our biceps, and now we're going to work our legs again, and we're going to be using a squat, and I'm going to show you one of the reasons that you might want a physio ball is so that you could place it against the wall. Now, the wall squat with the ball behind you is a really great way to do this if your knees are a bit bothersome. You've got to make sure that your feet are really stable, okay? So you've got to get nice and stable. The legs are somewhat forward, so you're leaning back a little bit. And when you squat down, don't let your knees move forward. Try and drop the hips straight down. So in other words, I'm not trying to move my knees well forward and put stress on the knee. I'm trying to push into my heels and push my hips backwards, so I'm dropping more straight down. And here's the thing. If your knees are bothersome, you can just barely do any bending at all and push into those heels and come back up again. So play it out to a level that's comfortable. And if you don't have a physio ball for the back of you, you could stand with your back to the wall anytime you want, but you could stand. And the feet should be, by the way, I should mention that, your feet shouldn't be narrow. They should be out between hip to shoulder distance wide. The weight does stay on our heels, and if you're not going to use the ball, you use your arms. So your arms go forward and you come down, weight on your heels. Now maybe you only come down a little bit and you push and you come back up again. And this is a great thing. This is going to really help. Don't make those knees unhappy. But maybe you're able to come a little more. Now here's the thing. Don't think that bending your knees is all that happens. You've got to keep your chest uplifted. All right? We don't want to go partway here and then tilt the rest of the way. That's not actually the squat we're looking for. We're looking for the torso staying pretty much upright and the weight staying on the heels. And those two things are in conflict with each other. So you're going to find that it's a little difficult to keep that squat action where the shoulders and the hips are traveling downward and the hips don't stop and the shoulders continue traveling down. And you're also going to find that if you're doing this, that your heart rate goes up, and that's absolutely perfect because this is a nice cardiovascular action. But, you know, pay attention to those knees because that's the thing about squats. If done correctly with some easing, they can help those knees get better. If they're done, though, in a way that irritates the knee, that's not going to help the knee get better. That's just going to make the knee more irritated. Okay, good. And now we're going to work a crunch. Now, the rectus abdominis is the muscle that's right here. It's going from either side, from the ribs down and attaching to the pubic bone. And it's got little sections. And so we've got an upper part where we bring the ribs toward the navel. So your navel's here. You bring your ribs toward your navel. But you've also got a bottom section where you tuck your tailbone under. So you bring your tailbone toward your navel. Okay, so separate, they're separate. Ribs toward navel can happen independently. Tailbone toward navel can happen independently. Or they can both happen together in that sort of a maximum crunch. Now we're going to create a crunch here at the wall. We're going to put our elbows at about the height of our shoulders. And we're going to pull upward to help release tension from the spine. We're going to create first a bit of extension. I'm standing right over my feet and I'm just leaning my hips toward the wall pleasantly. I look upward, taking a breath in, and then looking forward, I'm going to bend my knees. And I'm going to tuck my tailbone under and crunch my ribs, both the actions happening toward that navel until I feel nicely crunched. And then I pull upward, sway toward the wall. So sway toward the wall, the front of my belly is nice and long. And when I'm ready to, looking forward, bending my knees, now I can make the front of my body nice and short. Oh, it's quite intense to do it. It's like, whoa, we're not using resistance. We're just saying, hey, what's our range of motion? And you will find that just creating a simple range of motion action, you're activating this muscle. And since your arms are forward like that and pulling up a little bit, that's a minor amount of resistance, but it's a good amount of resistance. And so I like this wall version because it means that I don't have to get down on the floor to do something. I don't have to worry about my body weight or anything. I am able to create a really nice activation engagement of the target area. And it's really nice to feel that. It's really nice for us to go, oh, that's the area that's supposed to be activating. And that's often what we get when we're at the wall, creating that nice elongation and that very nice activating crunch. Okay, good. Now, when you finish out 10 of those repetitions, we are ready to hear the bell on the goat. And so here we go. If we were on a farm with goats, I don't think every farm has goats, but if we were on a farm with goats, we might hear that kind of noise. I'm thinking about getting little bells for, some of my little goats in there. All right, now we've entered round 2 and we are ready to work with the push-up. And so, at the wall, we had the hands a little lower than shoulder distance. It could be wider, they could be narrower, that's up to you. You lean toward the wall, you push your hands toward each other and move backward. Now I'm gonna show another reason for you to get a physio ball. So after this class, you're like, I gotta go get a physio ball. Using the physio ball is really great for creating a push-up that's it's more intense than at the wall, but it's less intense than a physio ball that's done, a push-up that's done without a physio ball. So let me show you. I'm coming down. I'm going to place a physio ball in a very precise location under the pelvis. So as I come forward and I stick my legs back behind me, I want to be like a plank of wood. I'm going to cross my ankles, my feet at my ankles there so that I stay nice and stiff. I don't want to round down. I want to keep nice and stiff. So I'm broad between the shoulder blades, and as I bend, my feet lift up, and then I push. And if I'm on exactly the right place on the physio ball, it's like being on a seesaw. And it's really great because it gives me a nice range of motion, not a lot of intensity. Now let's just say today, for some reason, you don't have a physio ball. Okay, so you don't have a physio ball. What would you do to create something that's a little bit more intense than the wall? Well, you could be doing a kneeling action. So in a kneeling plank, you work your way forward with your pelvis forward and your hands underneath you. And you press your hands toward each other and you come down a certain amount and you come back up again. And so that is a way to do a push-up. Now, the intensification of that is a lot more than at the wall. So you might do better if you're still working through your push-up actions is to step back but lower your hands down the wall a bit more so that there's more pressure on the wall, but you're ending up with hands and shoulders about the same distance. Because if you leave the hands high and step backward without lowering the hands, your arms are going to be in a different angle. So this might be the best way for you to increase the intensity of that push-up without it being troublesome. And here's the thing, although round 2 is an opportunity to increase intensity, if you're saying, I was hanging on by the skin of my teeth and what I was doing in round 1, don't increase the intensity. Just do another round of what you did before. It's perfectly fine. So that's why we start off with a level that's not as intense so that you can match up your intensity with what is
Julie, is this the one that you said we could use the strap as well?
The strap around your back for the push-up? Yes, you can. You certainly can.
Thank you.
That strap, you can use that. Now, next in line, once you've got those push-ups done, is we're going to find a way to make our hamstrings work differently. Now remember, it's always okay for you to do that good morning thing where you're pushing those hips back, weight on your heels, and your heels press outward as you come forward. That's always okay. But that doesn't get us into another thing that the hamstring does, which is bending our knee. And a lot of people need some practice on bending the knee in order to resolve knee issues. So here I'm going to do this with a prop and without a prop and with a prop. So without a prop, I'm going to push my pelvis down. And there's 3 bony areas that we want to press downward. The upper bone at the top of the pelvis and the pubic bone, although most people feel the pubic bone more than anything else. Put your arms beside you and traction your body forward. You could even have your arms like this, but low is probably best. Push down. You're going to feel your seat muscles engage and pull your belly inward and then bend your knees slowly. And you may find that you're not going to bend your knees very much at all. Okay, so if you're working on that, but when you bend the knees, don't let your pelvis hike upward. That would be an indication of your body trying to choose the wrong muscle. Keep the pelvis down and bend the amount you can. Now, if you find that you're more than capable of bending the knees and not feeling much, then take a rolled mat and place it in the back of the knee area. Because we're going to squeeze that mat. So we're going to push our pelvis down, pull the belly in, and squeeze the mat. And then release. All right, so each time we do that, we've got something that we're creating resistance in us. And we can't get past that. All right, so the mat's not going to go away. If, however, when you're doing this, instead of feeling a pleasant contraction, you feel a spasm, back off a bit. You're not ready to amplify it. Your body doesn't know how to correctly engage that muscle, and it's giving you sort of an all or none kind of principle. It says I'll contract 100% versus I'll meter out the right amount of contraction. It's just a sign of disuse of a muscle when it goes into a strong spasm. It's hard to get our body, engaged in the right way because life tends to work us unequally. We'll work our thighs more than our hamstrings. And although I'd say there's not going to be a chance it would be absolutely perfect, we're trying to match some things up so that overall our body works well within itself. The groups, the patterns of behavior work very well. Good. Now, when you finish with that hamstring, and by the way, you could just continue to do the good mornings and bending your knee is just not working for you. All right, but once you finish with the hamstring, whichever you chose, you're going to come back to a single weight, and I'm going to ask you to be in a seated position because we're going to be creating a bicep curl, and we want to be nice and stable. So when you're ready, you're going to sit down with your weight. Now, this is going to be a palm up position. We're going to be bending and with a palm up position. But we're going to put our arm in a position where it's sort of draped downward. And instead of being right beside us where we were with the hammer curl, the arm is actually going to be positioned somewhat forward of our side. All right? So from the side view, it's going to be like this, but I'm not going to hold the weight like that. Instead, I'm going to lean forward. So now I'm leaning forward and my arms are forward of the line of the chest. On this one side, my first side, I just hang the arm down. The other arm is a nice little bar that my elbow can just come up against. The palm turns up and I go slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now when I'm leaning forward, I'm making sure that I'm doing so that my spine is draped like lovely beads on a string. The spinal structure is just draping toward the floor, not crunched in the front. All right, so we want to pull the chest slightly forward so the spine is in an elongated position. All right, now I would say that we're not really using our core right now. We are elongating it. We're letting it be in a good position. We're sort of putting it on pause right now. This palm up position is a pretty classic one, and one where we're not going to feel as much from the forearm. You might be stronger in this position because it's more commonly used. So that's sometimes what we find is that if we turn our arm, if we do an action, and sometimes our muscle feels strong and sometimes our muscle doesn't feel that strong. And that has a lot to do with partnerships. And so it's not just isolating one muscle. It's putting the muscle in position where it's working with its partners. It's very specific partners based, absolutely on alignment, which is why we talk about alignment so much. Now, when you've done one side, you take a break for a moment, and then you're going to come into the position on the other side, the other arm draping and coming down. This is also somewhat nice because the posture itself is letting the weight hang down off that shoulder. That's a nice decompression for the shoulder structure. And we're still trying to create that very methodically slow action. Keep the deep breathing in and out, inhales, exhales, because the more we breathe, the more oxygen we give to our tissues, and the tissues use that oxygen to create energy for the muscles. So if you stop breathing, you're going to have a lot more lactic acid. You're going to feel that you're fatiguing faster, and you might not do as much intense work. And of course, one side's going to feel more tired than the other side. It's all about dominance. Now, good. So there was the, it's called the concentration curl because the posture looks like the thinker. Okay, well done. Now, we're going to be working with the back of our leg in a squat pattern. And I want us to use a technique that gets you to gradually create a deeper squat. So I'm going to have a chair. And if the chair seat is very low and I'm not ready to go very low, I would want to put maybe a couch cushion in that chair seat. We're not actually going to sit down, so you could technically do this if you had a really high couch. Probably not. Most couches I know are pretty low. You stand really close to the chair. Your feet are going to be between hip to shoulder distance wide, so maybe on the outside edges of that chair. Now there's a number of arm positions. The easier one is for the arms to go forward, and then you just lightly touch. So all I need is verification that if I'm looking forward, I'm like, yeah, I went down that low. I know exactly how low I went. If that's if the higher rest position is easy, then that's dirty. Then what you'll do is you will come down lower. All right. And I'm just touching, I'm not sitting, because if you sit, oh my goodness, you're not going to get up. Now that's arms reaching forward. It's harder actually to cross the arms and not let yourself counterbalance. And the hardest one would be to create a posture of extension. Weight's got to stay on the heels. And remember, we're not just touching and, we're not folding forward. In fact, when your arms are raising up, it's a little hard to get away with inappropriate posture. But make sure that what you're doing does not bother the knees. And always remember that what we did in the previous round, if that works better for you, switch back to that. So if you do best work with the ball against the wall in your squat, well, by all means, do that. But this is just one of those situations where what we're doing gives us verification of how we're creating the action, okay? So that posture, that action is rather nice. All right. Now, we want to engage rectus abdominis. So when you're done with the squat, let's review the wall. Because I know for some people, the wall is like the thing. So how do I make the wall a little more intense? Well, we pull forward, lean the hips, lift the chin, and then we look forward, bend the knees, but come up onto the ball of the foot and make the crunch. And you'll find that you can tuck under the tailbone more when you lift your heels up. Okay, so that's nice, and that works very well if you don't want to put body weight on the shoulders. But if we're okay, then I'm going to say, there's a couple of levels of a forearm plank crunch that I want to show us that are fairly easy to achieve, but they are more intense. Now, a forearm plank has the elbows right underneath the shoulders. So I'm going to grab around, verifying, clasping around the outside edges of the arm and making sure my elbows are right under the shoulders, not forward or backward. And then the hands can be in one of two positions. They can be in like a little dolphin snout, or they can be arms parallel. We do pull forward, we do make it broad between the shoulder blades. And right now, we're feeling our abdominal muscles stretch. So we take a breath in, and then as we exhale, we look down, and we bring the ribs toward the navel, and we tuck the tailbone under. Now, if you're comfortable, you only lift a little bit, but if you're still comfortable with it, you can lift until you're nicely rounding and you're feeling that crunch, and then you come slowly back down. Now, don't immediately lift the hips up. Make the hips lift the very last thing in this. So you pull forward, make it the ribs crunching first, tuck the tailbone, and then, only then, would you lift the hips. Oh my goodness. What a potential contraction. Now, if your shoulders are tense, back the elbows up a little bit, bring them in a little bit. Don't bring them wide. They usually go too far wide. Broaden the space between the shoulder blades. Inhaling, lift the chin. Exhale, crunch the ribs first, tuck the tailbone second, and then a little bit of lift. And I'm only bringing my hips up to about the height of the shoulder. All right, so I'm not lifting my hips really high. If during this, if at any point during this you say, wow, that feels a lot easier, oh, it's just because your body cheated. Bodies do that. That's what they do. They're like, oh, find anything. Remember, if you're not satisfied, if it's miserable at the floor, but you were loving life at the wall, get back to the wall. You're not through with that as something that would intensify. So remember, parse it out, a little bit at the floor, a little bit at the wall. That's how we train a body to accept these kind of actions and to do very well with it, versus just giving it only one option, not letting it to have something a little bit different. So, give yourself what your body's willing to do and allow it to engage in a way that creates a satisfying, pleasant feeling of fatigue and doesn't make you feel miserable in doing it, because we got to keep that reward system happening. Now, when we've finished out all of those crunches, then it's a sheep bell. All right, so then we're ready now for the third round, which would be push-ups again. Now, like I say, getting push-ups done, there's so many different methods of creating push-ups. It could be that by third round, you're already tired enough, you may want to go back to the wall. And so the wall version, I'll show you all the versions that we could do. Hands could be wide or narrow, a little below the shoulder, standing right over the feet. Push the palms toward each other as you come toward the wall and push away. If you want to say, I want to make it intense, I'm going to lower my hands about a hand distance down. I'm going to step my feet backward, push the hands toward each other, and it's like, yeah, that's really good. All right, inhale, exhale. Okay. Physio ball, oh my goodness, do you have a lot going for you? If you got a physio ball that you can place under the pelvis, cross the ankles to each other, push the palms toward each other, lift the feet on the way down, push your hands toward the midline on the way up. This is a really great action. All right, so that works very well. If you prefer, if you don't have a physio ball, instead of being in a tabletop, walk forward until your pelvis is leaning. Hands toward each other, push, come down, come up. But if you're thinking, I wonder if I could do a full plank push-up, well, now's the time to find out. So go forward into a full plank. See how far down you go and come back up again. You don't have to go all the way down. And that gives you some interesting information. Now, here's what's important. Don't strain. If you're feeling like you're on the edge, you feel any indication that that shoulder is squeaking, there's something wrong, back off. More repetitions is better than intense action that's causing feelings of compression or strain. So find a level that you can work that gives you a chance to do at least 3 to 6 repetitions. Because it's easy to strain things, unfortunately, and it's a very long pathway to recovery. It can take, if you strain a muscle in the shoulder, it easily takes 18 months to get everything okay again. And that's just with the simplest kind of injury. Unfortunately, I work with people that's the pathway that it takes to get back to what they had before that issue. So especially if you've not been working out the shoulders with things like push-ups, be very careful. Do the lighter work, but just do more of it and do it persistently every other day for a while. And you will find that, yeah, you're getting better. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to show us is for the hamstring. And I'm going to use this bolster. And I'm going to use a chair. And I'm going to create what's called a Nordic Ham Curl. Now, you can do the standing good morning. And you can do the face down curl the knee. Or you can do this one. Now, the chair is there to give us some support so that we don't fall forward. It's all done all the way to the ground, but I don't think it needs to be. And we need to have our heels able to touch the wall. So I got to keep my heel on the wall, and I'm kneeling on something that's nice and soft for the knees. Now, as I'm upright, I move the pelvis forward, fingertips on the chair. I let the pelvis go forward, and then I use my legs to come backward, and it makes my voice sound like that. So, actually, it's the ball of the foot has to stay on the wall. Heel doesn't have to. So keep the ball of the foot on the wall. You come forward, and then, oh, it's like bending the knee. It's just a more action. So if you were feeling overwhelmed with the bend the knee around the mat, you might not be ready yet for the Nordic Ham Curl. Or you might be saying, this is exactly what I want. Don't do it as a, that's not going to make your hamstrings do anything. The pelvis actually has to move away from the heel. So you got to be there. And you can help a lot with the arms, or just a little bit, okay? And so the further away your pelvis gets from those heels, the more your hamstrings are going to work, all right? Calf muscles too, which are, all of this is really good for the knee, but you've got to be able to be comfortable with it. You can't just do something that's too intense. So, and I would say there's a lot to doing the things that feel better, that you prefer to do. So, you know, absolutely be willing to do those things that you like the feeling of. Those will work very well for you. And you can work your way up to doing the more intense stuff as you gain strength and ability. Okay, now going to use this chair again, and I'm going to go down in a weight. So if you had a weight that's like a pound less, I was using a 5-pound weight, I'm going to go down to a 4-pound weight. Something that's relatively light, because we're going to be doing what's called a reverse curl. And we're going to be doing it in what is a short arm position. So right now, my palm is turned down, my elbow's right into the body. So we're not going to go the full range of motion, because this is really going to activate the forearm area too, and I don't want it to feel strained. So we're going to take about 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just very slow, and a downturn palm. Now, maybe 1 pound isn't enough reduction. You may already, after 2 or 3, start to feel that things are fatiguing out. If that's the case, yeah, just, get a lighter weight. It's a steady, slow action, and because this is an unusual position for our hand, the downward turned palm, we're not usually in that posture when we're using our bicep. The partner muscles in the forearm here don't quite know how to activate, which makes it a really good target area for us. It's going to create a tremendous amount of positive change for the bicep muscle itself, for the elbow, for the wrist, even for the fingers, and yes, for the shoulder too. So everything from the shoulder down receives benefit from doing this this rather different cross train. But we've got to match up the level of intensity to what's right for us. And so if you're feeling really, really strong sensation somewhere in the arm, then lighten up or switch. It's okay if you said, oh no, I can't do another one of those, and you wanted to turn and just do a different kind of curl. Sure, absolutely. Or even a hammer curl. Sure, absolutely. So, don't make it something that your body's going to suffer from for days from now. All right, and so I'm pulling the elbow right next to the body. I'm turning palm down. I'm going to use a very short, just a 90-degree line of action, but I am going to do it slowly. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we just go back and forth with that. And, here's the odd thing. Since this is so much a forearm targeted bicep curl, you may feel the fatigue exclusively there, even though your bicep muscle is working. All right, it just is it
okay to feel the fatigue in the I guess it's the deltoid there at the top of your arm?
Okay. Is your elbow right against your body supporting? In other words, is it just right in there, or is your arm somewhat forward?
Oh.
If that sounds to me like you might not have the elbow tucked in.
Yeah. And you're right. Thank you.
Yep, there you go. But see, that's what's key. We know if something fatigues in a certain area, it shows you that the alignment has to be just so for it to be exactly this target. Okay, and that's what we're doing. We're lining up our sights. We're saying, okay, this and this equals, there's the payoff, our target, our goal, what we intended to do. And although we could say that this would be a great way to work the deltoid, it's not our target today. So no harm, but not as much focus in the other areas. All right. Okay, now the next thing, if you have a heavier weight, and it's one that you would feel pleasant about holding in your hands, we're going to be doing a squat. I'm going to use the chair touch method. And remember, you can have a bolster in the chair if you want it. And you have a heavier weight. Also, if you have a kettlebell, this is often done with a kettlebell weight. So a kettlebell just happens to be one of these that has the handle on the top. And here's the thing. A great kettlebell is one of those gallon jugs because it has a nice little handle. So that can be used. Although this one, I want both hands on this. So one of the things about a kettlebell is it's got a nice long place for you to hold on to. But also, you may find that if you, if you had a weight that you could hold either ends of the weight like this. The arms are just going to be hanging on to the weight. They're not going to be lifting it or doing anything with it. They're just going to be hanging on to the weight. So whatever weight you want to use, you're going to turn, and I use the chair because I want to have all sorts of things happening with this. I want to know how deeply I'm going with it. So I'm holding whatever weight I choose to hold, and I'm going to keep the weight back at the heels. I'm going to come down and then back up again. And the weight drops straight down. I'm not trying to lean it or move it forward or back. So it's called a Goblin Squat. Now, I'll use the kettlebell so you can see what that's like holding the kettlebell. All right, so feet are between shoulder to hip distance wide. We're coming down and back up. Now, is it possible to hold the weight slightly further away? Yeah, and it's gonna feel different if you do. All right. So if the weight is a little further out there, there's going to be all sorts of other engagement if the weight does move slightly away from you. Number one, it's going to counterbalance pretty well. But ultimately, we're adding whatever this weight is to the full weight of our body, and our body's going to notice that we all of a sudden got heavier. It's like, oh, what's happened? We got heavier. All right, so there you go. But you know, if you didn't want to hold a weight, or you didn't have a weight that was sufficient, you know, have 1 pound or something like that, you could do any particular squat method. You could do this even with the ball behind you. It's a little hard to get everything in position ready for, but you can definitely add a weight, holding a weight while you're doing that at the wall with the physio ball behind you. Okay. Now, if our goal next is to work the core even more, well, we were already doing several things. So let me start with the wall. I'll move it to the forearm plank, and we're going to talk about physio balls and ab rollers too, because those are fairly easy to get. Of course, walls are fairly easy to have as well. So I'm here at the wall. I pull upward, I lean the pelvis, I take the inhale, I bend the knees, I round the front of the body, or I also lift the heels, and I can really get a little bit better engagement there. So that, pretty simple. Forearm plank on the ground, I come down, I make sure to wrap my arms around the elbows so that I get them right underneath me, not wide, because that's one of the best, being wide is a way to jam your shoulders into each other. Hands parallel or brought together in the center. Pulling forward, broad between the shoulder blades, inhaling, and then it's the roll the rib cage toward the navel, tuck the tailbone toward the navel, come up onto the knees, or if you're comfortable, straighten one leg and then the other leg and go into a full plank, and then bring one knee and the other knee down, and then slowly unwind. And boy, I tell you, doing it nice and slow and coming out of it, whoo, that's pretty considerably a big deal. But since the front of the ab works when we crunch it, there are other methods too. So if you do have a physio ball, here's another reason to have one. We get the physio ball under our knees. Now it's a little harder than you think, because if you're standing up and you bring it, you say, it's right on my knees, and so if I bend forward, it's going to be on my knees. No, it's not. It's going to go onto your thighs. And so it's on my thighs, it's got to be under my knees. So I go forward. I can do it with my hands down, pulling the ball forward, pushing the ball back, or I can lower down on the forearms to protect the wrists, and that works too. All right, so that's a great rectus abdominis action. You will find that the physio ball will try and fling you about, so be sure you get a nice, easy dismount. Make sure there are not sharp pieces of furniture edge near you. Now these rollers, you can definitely find them online. You place the roller and you're going to keep it between your knee and your ankle. And the idea is that we would come out into that plank position. So, you know, you could do it in a tabletop kind of action. You're just rolling a little bit. You could even do it just a little bit like that. But if you go out more fully, oh my goodness, you're going to feel a lot of rectus abdominis action and a lot of cardiovascular action too. So these rollers, if you're serious about getting some good action in your core, they're relatively inexpensive, and I've seen them recently online. Remember that I did write an article that talked about a home gym, and I did mention these and showed you at least one example of where you could find them online. You might be able to find them in your local store, but as I said, exercise equipment is somewhat scarce. Now, when you're ready to finish, you want to warm down. You could just come into a standing position and do that twist again. It's really, twists are absolutely a part of a warm down scheme. You want to make sure that you've got your spine loosening up. So you could stand straight, or you could bend your knees and reach across your body, which would get you more into your rib cage area. And so that's great. Or you may be saying, heck, I was already down on this floor. I'm not going to stand up again. And so you bring your legs in. And by the way, yet another reason to have a physio ball, so I really encourage it, is the ball can go behind the legs and you can rock side to side. This is my favorite reason to have a physio ball, is the rocking side to side. So very, very passive, very comfortable twisting action for the body. And twists are nice because they're stretching muscles, but they're also activating muscles and moving joint structures. And so they're really nice. You could have your arms arranged alongside the head, so you could be stretching the shoulder and chest region as you rock back and forth. Let's just say, physio ball, great, but you're not going to have one right now. So instead, you start with a nice wide knee posture and you're rocking side to side like that. So that is that's a really good way to loosen up. If you wanted more rotation, you could bring your feet together, or you could lift the feet up and rock side to side too. So all of that works really great. And, there's also, back of the leg, hamstring stretches that you might want to experience. Whatever feels right to do right now, those finishing things, now's the time to do them. And your follow through is also important in that within the hour, you should get a meal that has about 30 grams of protein. So it's 3 meals of 30 grams of protein per day, and that's easy to do because 30 grams of protein is found in most meat serving sizes that are served to us. So it's sort of like 3 to 4 ounces of chicken, 4 to 5 ounces of ground beef, 6 ounces of something like fish, or a cup of cottage cheese. So those are easy 30-gram portion sizes, and you have access to the internet even on your phone, so you can find out more. Sleep your 7 to 10 hours, and don't plan your intensities to be day after day. There should be a day off to a less intense kind of activity before you have another intense workout. Let me go and grab some puppies and see if they want to come in the room, because they're way too cute for us to ignore. Are you too cute to ignore? Yeah. Who's cute? Oh, you guys are cute. If you have any questions, this is the great time for them. If there's some aches or pains, we can talk about those. If you have questions about other classes as well, now's the time. We will have our regular setup of classes this week, Thursday, the 1 p.m. intermediate yoga, Friday, the workout with Julie class, that's 11 a.m. And then Saturday, we've got the 10 a.m. all level yoga, and then the 1 p.m. deep breath and more. Great class for learning breathing techniques, but also a gentle yoga and meditative work in that class too. Isn't Pogo, he's posing right now, isn't he? He's just...
Hey, Julie?
Yes.
I have a suggestion about foam rollers.
Yes, Glenn.
We got homemade foam rollers. They're a little bit smaller than what you're using, I think, but they were pool noodles at Walmart.
Pool noodles, okay.
Yeah, pool noodles. And
Did you
big
make
ones.
some bigger pool?
And they were about 6 feet long, and we cut them into about 2-foot sections, and it works pretty good.
Okay, good. Yeah, if the foam roller is too small, your toes will drag, but they do make some pretty big pool noodles. So there you go, and great idea. That's great. Yeah, a 6 foot long one cut into pieces works really well.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Excellent, everyone. Oh, Lucy, you're so cute. Yeah. they're posing right now. They've had their nap and they're starting. You can see that it's going to be like this. It's going to be ramping upward constantly. So now, Well, if there are any other questions or comments, great time for them. Remember, if there's something that you want to talk to me about privately, you're always welcome to do so via email or phone or text. Great way for us to communicate, or other methods. If you figure out other methods than those, that works great too. Excellent work, everyone. Good to see you all.
Great class, Julie.
Good class.
Thanks for being here. All right, I look forward to seeing you all again very soon.
Bye,
Hey, thank
Julie.
you,
Bye
Julie.
for now.